Hello, hello. Welcome to the CX Rise Up Talks. Today, I am here to discuss with you ideas and strategies on how to transform CX into business growth. So, this is the place where we get things done. I am your host, Camila Ferreira. I'm an award winning CX leader. I'm an author, Long Live CX, look at me, and more recently, a solopreneur as well. Today, I have the pleasure to welcome Kate Browse. Kate is a brand ambassador of CX, and today we're going to talk about the future of support. But before jumping into the topic, so Kate, please take the stage and introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, Cami, and you don't need to be nervous because I can't bite you from through the screen. Um, I love discussing customer experience because I love human experience, and that's really in a nutshell what drives everything that I do, whether it is in the CX space or the employee experience space or wherever I land in whatever role I have at whatever company I am working for. My passion lies at connecting humans to humans and making experiences a little bit better. And so really that's my passion. And I've worked in a call center, I have done event management for the contact center space, I've been in staffing, and I've been in SaaS sales. I've done lots of different things. Currently, I am the brand ambassador of CX, like you mentioned, for Outsource Consultants. And we are a BPO and CX advisory that's been in the space for about 12 years now. We do some great things, but I know we're really here to dive into not who I am and not what company I'm currently working for, but what CX is and what the future of CX is. So let's get back to that.
Oh my God. First of all, I'm no longer nervous. I'm back to
Hey,
Cami. Second of all, we can feel the passion. Oh my goodness. And like you, I love talking about CX, the power of it. And as you correctly said, at the center of absolutely everything, we have the human beings. Without human beings, we have absolutely nothing. So I am pretty sure it's going to be a great chat and a great show today. Let's jump into the topic because we said we are going to talk about the future of support. Is the future around here? So, what is your definition of the future of support? How do you see the future of support?
that is a really great question. And I need to start by saying that we as humans have these great, big, wonderful brains that can imagine things that have not yet happened. And because in specifically we have lots of sci-fi movies, which personally I love, but you see in the sci-fi movies things that we are not even close to being able to deliver as far as experience goes, human experience, customer experience, employee experience. As long as we can imagine it and can't deliver it, we are going to have a huge experience chasm. That's kind of the way we term it right now at Outsourced Consultants. Is there's a chasm. So there's a lot of fear right now among CX leaders, like, oh, is CX really going to be important? Because a lot of companies are asking, is this important? Are the funds that we have spent making a difference? And a lot of times the answer is no. But CX is not going away. Employee experience is not going away because there is this huge experience chasm between what we can imagine the experience being and what is currently delivered. So, what is the future of experience of humanity? It's going to be something very much like what we see in sci-fi, very much like people used to imagine people going to the moon, and now we've done it, we've been there, and we're going back. Customer experience is going to be defined by what we can imagine in the future, and that's what makes it so exciting to me.
Oh my goodness. Yes. I used to say that we are now living in the world of Jetsons and we need to start reimagine, right? What is the future of Jetsons? Because that's what you correctly said. We have the power of imagining things. And from my end, what I have been observing, not only as a customer, but also as a CX leader, is that we came out of the pandemic very much focused on the online experience, right? We were forced to transition to the online experience because of the pandemic. We saw companies and business exploding and spiking in sales and in connections during the pandemic. But then right after, there was kind of that demand of reconnecting, right? For 2 or 3 years of our lives, we were locked at home and were desperate to meet people again, but not in the way it used to be. Because again, we were coming out of the pandemic where we experienced the convenience of the online shopping, for example. So after the pandemic, it's not the same as trying to get back. It's a new world.
It
Today,
is, and it is really crazy that AI dropped right as the global lockdowns were lifting. And I remember the first time that I had an interaction with the new, AI, the generative AI. I love to go to the symphony, and it was during intermission. I checked my phone, and I had a whole bunch of messages from one of my best friends who is like totally into future tech, right? And everything was about this new thing. I had to try out Chat GPT. So I quickly gave him a call. I said, I'm intermission at the symphony. Can this wait? And he's like, no, do it right now. So I listened to him, and I used Chat GPT right then. And what I did was I put in some information that I knew the majority of information that was out there on the web that GPT would have used to give me the information was things that I myself had written, articles about very specific things. And I was really amazed. And right away, I was like, oh my gosh, I see the total benefits and possibilities for what generative AI can deliver. And I think a lot of people in the CX space share that passion. I think we still do. But I think there was a total misalignment for a lot of people understanding what it can feed back to you versus what are a good business case use for it. And that's what I love to help people understand is how do you get started? So we have this idea in the future. We're going to have these amazing experiences, but we don't have it today. So how can we get there today? And that's some of the things that I like to work towards, because as a human-centric person, everything needs to be designed around what we can do today to get to the future.
oh my God, there's a lot to unpack in just what you just said. My goodness, yes. Let's kind of touch the AI topic because this is the topic of the moment, right? And as you were mentioning, I think my first experience with AI was with GPT as well. Initially, helping me writing emails just to polish. I'm not a native English speaker, so I was using this just to polish my emails. But then when I realized what it could actually do, and moreover, back then I was kicking off my business. So I had this as a side business at the time. And I had to be more efficient. I had to use and leverage whichever platform or solution that was in place to make myself more efficient. And that's when I realized the real power of artificial intelligence. However, something that I learned in my early days working with GPT is that focus on the input, right? Sometimes again nowadays, right? So time is not nowadays, but time has always been money, and we are looking for easy and quick solutions. If I can give an advice to this audience is that spend as much time as you can on writing a good input for your artificial intelligence platform, whichever platform it is, for you to have a better outcome. But definitely AI came to stay. I don't think that AI, and I want to ask this back to you, I don't think AI will eliminate jobs. I think it will redefine jobs. But what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, well, yes, I am very much aligned with that. AI is not going to eliminate a lot of jobs. It will actually eliminate some. The roles will be easy roles for customer representative type things already have been taken by artificial intelligence in the form of IVRs and chatbots and everything. All of that is just a way of deflecting it. And AI is going to continue that deflection. But that is going to open up the doors for a more human experience for the outreach that creates more need for the creativity. And it's going to be beautiful. But here's the really interesting thing is that a lot of companies are realizing that we as humans are starved for human experience. I think it started before the pandemic. I think the pandemic increased it and exacerbated it. but we have a huge desire to have interactions with other humans, even if it is only with, calling customer service. And ironically enough, calling is still the preferred method of reaching out. Over 60% of people do prefer to pick up that phone and call. But an amazing number of them, nearly 60% of people, are willing to pay for the experience of having a person pick up the phone on the other end versus going through AI. And so the AI is creating an incredible amount of dynamics and subscription levels for service, which is kind of wacky. Not really sure how I feel about all of that, but it is something that companies are aware of and are beginning to capitalize on, tiered levels of service. So the AI is going to take away some jobs. It's going to create other jobs. But really what AI is it's a tool that when used appropriately makes our jobs easier, just like you were using ChatGPT to help you write emails. So an analogy I like to use is that AI is like the tool, like if something goes wrong with your car, and they have the scanner, right? You plug the scanner in, it reads the code, it's P071. You're like, what does that mean? So you don't know, you take it to your mechanic and the mechanic will say, okay, well, there's something that says that it's running lean. Okay, your car is running lean. What does that mean? Well, it could be a blocked fuel sensor. It could be that you need to change some filters. It could be that the vacuum isn't working and there's a leak there. There's all these different things, and your mechanic is going to listen to it, going to drive it, see how it feels, all these different things. And so that scanner is the tool. And I like to say that's what AI is. AI is that tool, and AI can say when a call is coming into a customer service agent, okay, this is the third time the person has called this week. It sounds like they're very frustrated and they've mentioned canceling their account. And then the human is going to be able to diagnose, well, what's really going on? Because the AI is artificial intelligence. It can't think for real, and we as humans can. Now, will artificial intelligence get to the point where we cannot distinguish it from human thinking? It's not there yet. There's a big prize out there. There's $1 million prize out there, the ARC Challenge, that is challenging people to do just that. But we aren't there. And a lot of people don't even think we are within 5 or 10 years of getting there. That's something that I kind of monitor because it keeps me excited. But for the time being, until we get there, those interactions, the AI is simply the scanner reading a code and telling you how to look at the situation, where the human on the other side of that interaction is going to need to be upskilled. And instead of reading from script, like old contact center agents needed to do, follow the script very accurately, they're going to be needed to be told and to be trained to say, hey, think for yourself. And I love that, because that's what we as humans are good at, is thinking for ourselves. We are the most adaptable creature on the planet. We can live at the bottom of the ocean. Elon Musk thinks we can live on Mars. We can live in Antarctica. This whole planet is covered with humans. And that is not true of any other species. And that's because we are so adaptable. We are so good at diagnosing something and saying, I can figure this out. And when we empower agents to use AI as that tool, it unlocks new opportunities.
Oh, absolutely yes. 100 times yes, 1,000 times yes to everything that you said. And coming back to the first question and the topic of this episode today, which is the future of support. So if we put ourselves on the agent shoes nowadays, it's a complex job, right? So they have calls coming in, as you said, 60% of calls. That was the same experience I had with my previous employer, if not more than 60%. They have a grasp of what those calls are about, but not a detailed information. And then they have to go through knowledge base or past experiences, and in a very short period of time, connect so many pieces of information. And that's where, to me, AI comes into place very successfully, because AI has the capacity of processing a lot more data in a faster way than any human being. So instead of wasting or investing, depending on how you see things, but investing or wasting time on processing data, let's invest time on connecting, right?
I love that. Yes.
Right? Because again, connection is what drives trust. That is what drives sales, which is consequently business growth. So instead of having agents or any other employee or any other human being connecting data or reading databases, that takes time and it's exhausting, right? Because again, how many calls does an agent handle on a daily basis, or emails or chats, whatever it is. It's a lot of information. Over time, of course, that you develop your own knowledge, but it takes time. And even though clients nowadays, they expect very fast answers, fast resolution. So AI definitely comes to help those agents to be more successful when engaging and solving for those clients. And that's when you can leverage your personal strengths by connecting with those clients, by offering other solutions rather than solving problems. How can I help you be more successful? That's when the business growth takes the spotlight. Right. So
Yeah.
speaking or talking about the future of support, that's it. AI definitely came to stay. I agree with you. It's not going to be in 5 years from now that we're going to have a, I don't know, regular or normal intelligence. No, as I said before, artificial intelligence is as good as your input. And input comes from human beings. If you know how to raise the right question, then you're going to get the best outcome possible.
Yeah, I mean, what you just said is everything anyone needs to know in a nutshell. AI is trained from human beings. It is human being input that teaches the AI. And so if you can teach your humans to have that clean data, if you can teach your AI to understand what the clean data is and how to connect it, that's when it becomes so powerful. And I like to say that's part of having fast feedback. And it needs to be something that the AI puts together in the conglomeration, just kind of like I just kind of mentioned in my example from pretending that your AI is like some sort of a diagnostic tool that you would use at your mechanics, where instead of reading a code, the AI can parse everything that has come from a particular customer. That's pretty advanced though, honestly. So a lot of people who are just beginning their journey on AI, they're thinking, oh my gosh, how in the world am I going to get to that level? That's not where companies start. You start with something very specific that you can get fast feedback on. That is the goal, is to provide some sort of feedback. Some companies are going to start with providing feedback to their customers via a chatbot. Some people are going to start with fast feedback to their contact center agents to give them a, hey, this is what has happened previously on the interaction. It's going to be different for every organization and company that wants to do this. And that's where I think it is mission critical for companies to understand that that off the box solution that everybody else is using might not be what is best for them. A couple of years ago, there was a study that came out that said 80% of spend on AI tools and initiatives had failed. And companies kind of went, whoa. Well, that's because they just kind of said, oh, here's a shiny new toy. Let's plug it in and see what it can do. That's the wrong way to do AI. You cannot say, oh, let's see what it can do. You need to tell AI exactly what it's going to do. You need to train it and have the use case. And that's where I think that fast feedback, figuring out how are you going to use that feedback and make the experience better, whether it's for your agent or for your customer, and start small. And what are you going to do with all of that feedback now? You're going to be learning something from it. And that turns into a learning loop. And I'm really, really passionate about making silos a thing of the past at companies, because so often you get some fast feedback. Let's say you get it going. You have an AI tool and it's working really well, Cami. And then all of a sudden something isn't working well. And you're like, oh gosh, well, maybe there's a problem on the website. Maybe there's a problem with the product. Maybe there's a problem with one of your shipping vendors. Something is going on, and so often that information sits in the contact center or sits living in the AI, and it doesn't get communicated across the organization. And organizations and companies need to really say, okay, when we are understanding that something is broken, this needs to be communicated to all the teams, because if something's wrong with the website, you need to fix the website. And the marketing team needs to know so that they can be addressing that on their end. And the customer service representatives need to know so they can answer the phone and apologize for something that is going wrong. Or if it's something with the product team needs to know, and the marketing needs to be addressing that, and the IT needs to come in, and all of these different things, depending upon the different problems, all need to be addressed quickly by the various teams. So you get that fast feedback, and then you have that learning loop, and that learning loop needs to include every team that has a touch point to that, so that you're breaking down those silos and that information isn't just sitting in a computer somewhere, in the cloud somewhere, on the premise, wherever it is, that isn't moving business forward. You can't grow if you're not using that information. And then you kind of use all of that fast feedback and those learning loops. It's a learning loop because you're learning something from it. What are you learning? How to grow your business, how to make it better. And then you just sit back and you do insightful iteration. You think, okay, this is what we learned. We implemented this AI tool using fast feedback, using learning loops to benefit the employee or the customer or both. What is our next goal? How are we going to iterate what we've done and make it better? So you keep doing what you're doing, make it better, and then choose your next small project to make it better, knowing exactly what the business-driven growth initiative is. Because if you don't know why you're doing it, there's zero reason to do it.
My goodness, this is gold.
It's not rocket science. It's not. It is something that so many companies don't understand, because companies are layered and siloed and all these different people. And that's why it's so important for customer experience to not go away, because it's the customer experience team that is responsible for keeping the human at the center and driving this message home.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. This is more than a show. This is a masterclass. And there is a lot that I wanted to unpack on what you just said. One is feedback loop. And just coming back to your initial comment about experience being a future and long-term topic to be discussed, I agree with you. However, as a CX leader, and you may face the same challenge, people will still miss or confuse CX with CS, with support.
Yes.
And those are completely different things. What you just described is actually CX. It's the feedback loop, not limited to the support team, right? Because most of the times we do have the metrics, the satisfaction metrics limited to the support interactions. However, whichever feedback we get from clients is very valuable for us to take business decisions, from product, from finance, from marketing, you name it, from human resources, because we also need to care about the employee experience as well. So definitely AI gives us a speed and a wealth of information about what customers are telling us directly and indirectly, because if you think about the sentiment of the calls, this is information as well, right? That can be used for us to improve how we're going to engage with that customer moving forward. What is the level of the sentiment satisfaction level that we are having with that particular client? And smarter companies will definitely use this to start making decisions and stop operating in silos, because this is one of the biggest mistakes. We do have the company's goals, the vision. However, on the second page of that book, every single department starts working on their metrics, on their goals in a very siloed way, and that's when things starts to fall apart. Oh, masterclass here. And the other topic that I want to unpack with you is, in the era of AI, one of the things I have been observing is leaders checking the boxes of having AI, but not necessarily solving for the clients. Oh, I need to have AI, otherwise I'm going to be out of this party. But this decision of investment is not being taken with clients at the center of the decision making. So what are your thoughts on this?
I think we kind of touched on this already, that as a shiny new tool, yes, AI is something that you need to be working towards. But just saying, okay, here's a vendor who's promising me something, I would be really skeptical of any vendor that is promising things right now, because every vendor is so new. I mean, I think I read a statistic, and I think it was like 3,500 new AI companies are launched every quarter, and launched every quarter of last year. And that is an incredible number of people saying, hey, I have AI, I can make a business, I can create a solution. So I think the golden rule right now for using it for business growth is, again, going back to that intention, not to just say, hey, I want a shiny new tool. You need to say, hey, AI can make me able to scale, and growth is what is going to drive this business forward. Some companies might not want growth. I don't think there are many, but some companies are very fine just being the small mom and pop, whatever they're doing. They don't want to grow, but the average company really does want to grow. So if they want to grow, they need to scale, and AI is a huge tool that enables that. Whether you are a company that is a restaurant that is, can use AI to inspire new menus and recipes, or you're a travel company that is needing to help people plan itineraries, whatever your use case is, AI can probably help you scale and be more creative at the same time. So it's really important that you get very hyper clear on what your goal is. Why do you want to use AI? And then some companies are going to be able to say, okay, we have internal teams that can build this. And some companies are going to say, we have no experience with this. We have zero capacity to build this internally. And you need to find trusted advisors then that can help you. And whether that is at a CX advisory firm or whether you're doing all of the research yourself, you can't just trust what one vendor is saying to you, because they're trying to sell you something, right? And you always are going to be, when that telemarketer calls you and you're like, okay, yeah, it's the middle of dinner. That doesn't happen as much anymore. Now it's all people saying, oh, we have the perfect solution for your business, and we are going to give you exactly what you want. Maybe, maybe not. But you need to really drill down into those vendors, and you need to ask the right questions. And asking the right questions usually means understanding things that you probably don't. So go find a trusted advisor. Find somebody who has done this. There are many different people in the industry who have lots of experience that aren't necessarily looking to sell you something and are very willing to say, hey, these are the challenges. And that might be something for another show that we could talk about, because that's a whole nother topic. But that's, I think, the most important thing that companies have done wrong in the past 3 years since AI dropped. They haven't been hyper focused on what is the goal and how can you start. Do it small and iterate and keep it focused on the human experience. If your AI isn't delivering a better human experience, if it's just crunching data and spitting out information that doesn't feed into a learning loop, you're getting that feedback, but you're not learning from it to grow your business, it's not worth it.
Absolutely. And you touched a point very important here, because AI works for solopreneurs like me to big companies like Apple and Microsoft and some others, right? But you need to know what is the solution that you are looking for, what you were trying to solve. What does your customer need? That's your starting points to have a conversation with any potential vendor. And by listening you saying about this kind of a 35 new vendors every quarter, I do remember kind of 2 years ago attending CX events, we just have a few vendors talking about AI. Nowadays, absolutely every single vendor in a CX event is selling something related to AI. So knowing what you want, knowing the solution that what you are trying to solve is really important. Otherwise, you're going to be caught on a trap that you have the AI, but you do not have the solution that you need. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so coming back to the topic here of the future of support, we said that the future of support is where AI, empathy, and iteration meet. What does it actually mean to you, Kate?
AI is learning to act like it has empathy. That is really different than a human actually feeling empathy. And there's a lot that has been learned and has yet to be learned. One example that is a really horrible one with empathy from an AI product is when there was an AI chatbot that was rolled out by a company providing counseling and support to people with eating disorders. Many of the listeners will have heard this. And at first, the AI was giving good answers, but eventually there weren't enough guardrails in place, and the AI started telling people with eating disorders to just simply stop eating. Now, we know that the AI was in the beginning mimicking empathy, but it didn't actually have empathy. And I think this was a really great case of why was a company using a chatbot to try to help people with eating disorders. I mean, you want that empathy, but in that kind of use case, you really need human empathy. And so I think the future lies in when there's an interaction that really doesn't require a lot of empathy. When you're looking to make a transactional interaction, you probably don't need a human for that. But if something has gone wrong, or there's some sort of medical issue, or there's a mental health issue, those are things that right away should be flagged for human empathy, human interaction, and have that human-centered design. And so I think that's kind of where the future lies as far as the different iterations that we will go through using AI to parse things and decide when is a human really, really necessary. There are times where it is not appropriate for an AI to be interacting, and there are times when it is.
Oh, I agree with you. And the first kind of example that comes to my mind is money withdrawal. We used to go to the bank in the past during the business hours and go to the cashier and ask for the money. And nowadays, so you have the ATMs, you also have the drive-through. That transaction does not require a human connection, right? It's a great example of a very transactional experience. There are some others when you need to discuss investments, or you are making kind of a future plans and you want to plan ahead with someone, as you correctly said, with an advisor that knows finance. Then that interaction, that human interaction, is so important. And having the trust on that advisor is way important for you to make your plans, right? Wonderful. Let's shift the gears here a little bit because there's another topic I want to explore. You have been such a strong advocate for accessibility and inclusion in CX. So, what does designing truly inclusive support look like in today's digital first environment?
Inclusion for the purposes of accessibility simply means that you need to think about all the different types of humans that will be interacting with your company and making sure that everyone has the ability to interact. A great example of this one is actually Domino's. Domino's had a major fail when it came to their rollout of a mobile app that allowed you to order and track your pizzas, and it wasn't designed with people with visual impairments in mind. Domino's got a slap on the hand, fixed the problem, and have turned around and become incredibly accessible. And I think that's just a great example of a company that maybe did something wrong, but they didn't let it set them back overall. They used it as a learning experience. And every company can do that. Now, here's the thing, is that as humans, we all have different needs, and you're never going to be able to design something that is going to make it easy for every single human. But the goal is to say, I want to be as inclusive as possible when I am designing a human experience. So how do you do that? Well, you don't say, oh, I know what people with visual impairments need, or I know what people with mobility impairments need. You say, come to the table, people with disabilities. And it's really that simple. You simply reach out to different organizations and people within your network, within your communities, within your local systems, and you say, hey, we want to design an inclusive experience. And you'll see that they have plenty of feedback to give. There's a hashtag that I love to share when I'm asked this question, and it's just hashtag nothing about us without us. And that wasn't coined specifically for people with disabilities, but it is a great one to remember. Nothing about us without us. Don't design an experience for people with, sensory input issues if you haven't asked people who have sensory input disorders to sit at the table with you and help design the experience, because you won't know what they need. Even if you have somebody in your life who has that, unless you have it yourself, you just simply are not going to be able to know. Nothing about us without us. Include them in the design process, include them in the testing process, include them in the process of rolling it out. And a lot of times it can be as simple as saying to your organization, hey, we're wanting to be more inclusive. What family members do you have that might be willing to participate in this? What organizations are you aware of because you have dealt with somebody that has some sort of a disability. Disabilities affect a full 25+% of people in the world. And so if it's 1 in 4, if you know 4 people, likely you know somebody who has a disability. So it isn't that hard. You start with the people in your company, you go out to their family members, you go out to the community, and you just design an experience that is inclusive. What are the benefits of that? You earn more money. I mean, it's a terrible thing to say, but when you are inclusive, you allow business to grow in a way that includes everybody. If you don't design that allows blind people or people with visual impairments to interact with your mobile app, they're not going to be able to order pizza from you. So it's that simple. It's not that simple, but it is that simple in a nutshell.
I love this idea of inviting family members. And I can agree more with you that those initiatives must start from within, right? Sometimes companies don't even think about the disabilities of their own employees. And just by listening to them, they would learn so much about how to extend this to their customers. But we start from within. I love the idea of inviting family members. I think this is amazing. And I am a truly strong believer of a more inclusive world and a more equitable world. In my personal experience, I learned this by having lived in so many different countries, learning the culture on the go, right? So you were born and raised in a specific country, and that's what shapes you. But by the time you move internationally or you move cities, you don't need to go that far to change countries. But by the time you change cities, there is a different ecosystem that you need to learn. And you gotta be inclusive. You gotta listen to that instead of trying to push your way. And what I think that most of the times happens is that companies try to push their way. As you said about Domino's, they have an amazing app, but it was not inclusive. So that was their way of seeing the world and not necessarily a equitable way of seeing the world. Right? Oh my goodness, I do love this topic. And this would be a topic itself for a podcast episode. But Kate, we are approaching the end. You won't believe it, but it's been almost 40 minutes talking, and this has been yes, this has been a masterclass. So I couldn't thank you enough. But before the end of this episode, what is the main message that you want to share with the audience?
Keep things human-centered, because if you keep a human at the center, whether it's your customer or your employee, you're going to design a better experience. Use AI to build up humans, not to replace them.
Wow.
That's brilliant.
What a good way to wrap this up. Kate, I can't thank you enough. It has been an absolutely pleasure to have you here today, sharing this gold nuggets of all of your experience. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for joining the show.
It was my pleasure, Cami.
To the audience, stay tuned for the next episode. And meanwhile, long live CX on Amazon. And if you are a woman in CX, join the Global Sisters of CX. Thank you so much, and I see you in the next episode.